Hey everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Final Down NFL podcast with me, Jim, and Punk Raider. We're here to talk about NFL. Punk, how's it going?
Yeah, it's very empty in here at the minute. I'm feeling a distinct lack of moaning from up north.
No Dave, no Finn. We are a little bit empty at the moment, but fear not, all right, because I've made some calls and I've got us a series of special guests coming on today. Just for the listeners' benefit and the viewers' benefit, it was supposed to be me and Dave doing this pod, just talking about our favourites coming into the NFL draft. Not necessarily first rounders, but the players that we like to watch. Dave then pulled a Claude Rains and just disappeared up on holiday at last minute. And so I've made some calls, and I thought what I'd like to do is...
and the best you could come up with was me.
Well,
I mean, come on, man. Everyone knows I don't do draft.
Well, I'm not going to talk draft. I'm not going to talk draft necessarily, Punk. I want to talk to the fans that are actually dealing with the top three teams in the draft. So I've summoned podcasters from the different teams. Yeah, so this is going to be one for the books. But yeah, very, very happy to have got the people I've got on the pod tonight. So we're going to start with the Bears, then we'll go to Commanders, then to the New England Patriots. Because we did a show a couple of weeks ago talking about what we thought they would need, but we're on the outside. We don't know what the fan base is really wanting. We don't know their ins and outs. So I wanted to speak to the experts. So first we have, all the way from the Irish NFL show, the Emerald Isle, we have Noel Downing. Thank you very much for being on the pod, Noel. How's it going?
Not too bad. Really appreciate the invite. Come on, I'm loving this build up now to the draft. This is when things really start to kick on, and trying to get through all these names and players and colleges. It's football 24/7 immersion.
Yep.
That kind of way. And I love it. I'm here for it.
If you're a spreadsheet guru, this is your time of year.
I was never very good with the spreadsheets, but I like watching football, so I just go with that.
It's an NFL fan's Christmas, basically, the draft. I love the draft so much. It's so much fun. But first thing we've got to ask you, of course, Noel, is you weren't born in America, I don't think. So why the Chicago Bears? Of all 32 teams in all the league, why did the Bears steal your heart? What happened?
Yeah, I've got that question a couple of times, and I've heard other people answer it, and it's I was watching Channel 4 one night and I see in this player or that player or this game.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I don't have that specific moment. The only thing, like, they've been there since the early 90s. The only thing I can put it down to is a neighbor of mine had a cousin in London, and they used to spend their summers in Dublin next door to me, and he was into NFL. He was a London Monarchs fan, and he was a Bears fan. And I'm thinking he somehow converted me at some point. But that actual origin, I don't have that moment where I have friends who say, "Oh, I saw Walter Payton on Channel 4 and that was it." I don't have that specific moment. I think I was just indoctrinated by a friend from London who used to spend the summers in Ireland.
He just seeded it into your head, just little by little, just showing your logos.
If he'd have been a Patriots fan, I'd have had a nice 20 years. But, he is who he is. And now so am I.
Hey, Patriots fans have got their own problems right now, so don't worry
now
about
they
that.
Do,
yeah, exactly. Finally back to normal. Normal has been resumed. So who has been your favourite Chicago Bear ever? Do you have one in particular?
Yeah, look, I think I'm a Brian Urlacher fan. I loved watching him play. I mean, I have the Hester jersey behind me. Hester is probably the most exciting. I mean, that 2006 season was just an amazing run. Unfortunately, they fell short. But I mean, even returning kicks, just watching Hester line up, anything was going to happen. That kind of way. I used to love that. So my favorite player is Urlacher, and Hester, I think, has been the most exciting. But I'm hoping, maybe some players coming in this year's draft might change that a little bit.
Yeah, fingers crossed, man. So you've gone from Ryan Pace to Ryan Poles. Not a lot of letters changed there. Have you noticed the difference in those two GMs?
Absolutely. I think for a while, a lot of Bears fans kept calling him Ryan Pace. It took a while to make that change, because he went from Ryan and Matt to Ryan and Matt. So things were confusing for a little while. But no, there is a big difference. You can just see the way he works. Ryan Pace was a bit all over the shop. Ryan Poles has an idea in mind. It feels like there's a plan. And if certain players like Roquan Smith don't meet certain targets or don't agree to a certain price that Ryan Poles has in his head, there's no messing about. It's done. It just feels like he knows where he wants to go, there was a lot of hard work to kind of get there. We had a tough season, which is, you know, the season before last, which is why we had that number 1 pick and we were able to make the trade. But you can definitely see a roadmap. Whereas with Ryan Pace, I'm doing it there again, it just felt choppy. It was, you know, he might hit the odd, you know, late round pick. And sometimes, you know, we had the 2018 season where I think they flattered to deceive a bit and you thought maybe this is something, but it wasn't. Whereas this feels like it's more structured. There's more of a foundation being put in place. And it's something that hopefully, if it turns out to be as good as it kind of looks to me, over time, we'll kind of see the benefits of that. And it looks like it'll be done the right way.
It's definitely made some moves. I mean, Montez Sweat being brought in mid-season was a great pickup for you. I mean, he ended up with the most sacks on the team, I think. Is that right?
He did. He finished up as the Commanders and the Bears.
I was going to say he's got to be about the only player in history to lead sacks in 2 teams.
I might skip that when I talk to the Commanders now, but I don't want to rub it in. But he's obviously made a lot of moves. So Montez Sweat was a good move in. The big move, obviously, in the offseason was Justin Fields has been moved to my Pittsburgh Steelers. Thank you very much for a conditional 6th round pick next year. Were you on which side of the fence were you falling with Justin? Were you kind of like, we've got to move him on because we've got a quarterback coming in, or actually we should have been looking at other picks? And I don't know, what was your thoughts, Noel?
For me, I was keep Fields, get an absolute haul for the pick, and continue to kind of put places, you know, fill holes around the team. I thought if you put the right players around Fields, I do think there's a quarterback there. I know he absolutely has his limitations, and I think it was a mixture of, you know, the coaching staff that was there, and Justin Fields has to take his share of that blame. But I felt there was a player there that could really be, you know, if you had the right coaching staff and the right tools around him, could be utilized to win games and to be a dynamic player. Well, look, I mean, the minute they got that number 1 pick from the Panthers, while what I wanted the Bears to do was keep Fields and build around, but I knew I can see the logic to doing what they're doing. I can see why to a young GM that the Caleb Williams option, you know, in so many ways, whether it be, you know, having a rookie contract that will obviously keep going, which helps your cap situation. Whether he can just say he now has his guy, that he tried the other guy as quarterback, it didn't work, he has his guy. I can just see the sense in it. So I knew from the second they got that number 1 pick that that's the way they were going to go. And in fairness, I wasn't entrenched in it. I mean, Bears Twitter, I don't know if you guys are aware, Bears Twitter
scraped
absolutely melted. I mean, Civil War was mentioned more than once, and it's absolutely what it was. It got vicious for a while. I was never that way. I can see the sense in what they're doing. And I'm excited for Caleb Williams. I think he's going to be a really good quarterback. I just kind of liked Fields, but look, that's the way it goes. Players come and go. And now I have 2 Fields jerseys that if anybody wants them, I'll absolutely do it.
Well, I might need them. I might need them. I'm very happy that
there we go. If you can dye it from the Navy.
It's not a massive transition.
Just swap the stripes to yellow, you'll be all right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Although he's probably not number 1 there, is he? He got something different, I think,
number
didn't he?
2, I think he's got the jersey number of. Not every team's assigned numbers, but I think he's got number 2 there.
Well, I'll knock a few extra quid off then because it's not the right number. You've got the name.
You've already given me far too much already, Noel. I mean, you know, I've still got to pay back for Chase Claypool, so you know, I'm still owing you on that side of the bargain. But I mean,
look, I'm leaving now. Okay, this was.
No. Let's talk about some people you brought in. So you brought in Keenan Allen, big name obviously from the Chargers. Ryan Bates, guard from the Bills. 2, I would say, solid moves, wouldn't you, Punk? You know, obviously established names in the league.
Yeah, I think Keenan Allen in particular it's kind of weird because you were saying before about you'd want to put some weapons around Fields. It's the one thing he's never had is some proper true weapons. And now you're bringing Keenan Allen, who's, you know, all right, he's the wrong side, getting on a bit, but you know, he is a solid wide receiver. There's no reason why he and Fields couldn't have struck something up. But yeah, I think with the Bears, it's very much a case of I think you almost had to move on to Williams. I don't really think you had much of a choice. I think the fact that he's seen as this generational talent coming in, you know, I don't think that the other half of the fan base would have stood for it if you'd kept Fields and missed the opportunity. Now, you know, as we've always say with this, you know, you don't know until they've played. So, things could happen. But yeah, I think for me, the Bears have done the right thing. I think they're bringing in the right pieces now as well. They're looking to strengthen that O-line. They're looking to give them wide receivers. It makes sense what they're doing.
Yeah, no, it does. And I think another factor that comes into it as well is, look, the Bears had the number 1 pick last year and they traded it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And then CJ Stroud became what CJ Stroud became. So that's another added kind of pressure then, because if you reject him last year and make that move, and then this year you then don't take Caleb Williams, and if he does live up to that potential, then people stand back and say, well, look, you've missed 2 top-class quarterbacks in 2 years, and, whoever you have, ex-quarterback there maybe isn't doing it, or if Justin Fields doesn't take the step that I think he could have, there's no guarantee that was going to happen. So if Fields doesn't make that step, and you've bypassed Stroud and Caleb Williams, that's a lot for a GM to shoulder as well. But I do agree with you. I think I do see the sense of it, as I say, and in the long run, just for a GM building a new team and building this whole roster from the bottom up, it just makes a lot of sense the way they've gone.
Yeah, I don't think you get fired as a GM if you take Caleb Williams and he doesn't work out, because the consensus opinion is that Caleb Williams is the number 1 pick in the draft. So no one can really turn around and go, you're an idiot, apart from maybe PFF, who keep trying to push Jake May on everyone. But let's talk about how we got here then, because last year you had the number 1 overall pick, and I've got the list here of what the Carolina Panthers did when they gave you a phone call. They gave you DJ Moore, obviously number 1 wide receiver. The first round pick last year, which you took on Darnell Wright, great right tackle, right into the starting lineup. You moved up in the second round to take Tyreek Stevenson at corner. And you've got the first and second round pick this year. No, sorry, your first this year and a second round next year, right? And they got Bryce Young. Now, obviously, a lot of us like Bryce Young. I think he's been severely unhelped in Carolina with the supporting cast. But it's kind of a fraud that you're sitting there at 1 right now, because you're not a Commanders or Patriots team. You had, 8 wins? You should be picking mid-round. Yeah, this is a free pick basically for you. You couldn't have finessed this any better than if you tried. And I guess the other thing is that Justin Fields is a Ryan Pace pickup. And when you're a GM, it needs to be your quarterback, because that's how you're judged. And I think if he held on to Fields, it's not his guy, and he could still get fired for that one after the next year, I suppose. But what a move! What a move in hindsight for that to work out in your favor.
Absolutely. Look, if Bryce Young turns out to be the player the Panthers wanted, great for them. They'll be delighted if they have a franchise quarterback. They have made a few moves this year to kind of put a bit more around them. So who knows how that'll work out. But either way, the Bears have come out of this. You named some of the players there they ended up with. It's just been an instrumental part of this rebuild that they've been doing. It really has put that foundation in I was talking about, and you can't fault it. And then I don't even think Ryan Poles, in his wildest dreams, thought that the number 1 pick would roll around again. I think he may have hoped it would be a high-ish pick, but I don't know if he thought the number 1 pick was there. If he did, genius. I will absolutely bow to him if I ever see him. But I mean, either way, this draft, is set up amazingly. Even with the very few picks that they have, if they could still hit 2 picks in the top 10, if, for example, those 2 picks even work out, you could be in a really, really good situation. And then you add in everything else from that trade. And it's just worked out so far really, really, really well for the Bears. Much better than I think any of us really honestly thought it was going to actually work out.
And you moved Justin Jones over to the Cardinals. So Gervin Dexter, how are you feeling about his first season? He was your other second round pick.
Yeah, we had the two guys. The 2 guys came in at the defensive tackles, Dexter and Pickens, and I want to see more from Pickens. But Dexter, as the season went on, did seem to maybe be stepping it up a bit more and seemed to becoming the player that the Bears hoped he would be. Still think they need to go out and get a 3 tech. That's something that's really important for this. I was going to say Matt Nagy there. See, that's how it works. This Matt Eberflus defense. But I mean, I do like Dexter. I think if he continues to make those kind of strides this season, he could be an impactful player. Andrew Billings, came in a short-term contract, done really, really well, and got a new contract. So it's always good to have a veteran there beside players like Pickens and Dexter to maybe bring them along. And I'm kind of hoping there'll be some sort of, I know we need pass rusher, we need an edge, But I also really like, I have a couple of players in mind I'm thinking could maybe be that 3-tech in a year or two if they were to bring them in the draft. So again, we'll kind of see how that plays out. I'm kind of thinking at some point Ryan Poles will make some trades. I don't think we'll only end up with 4 picks. So, maybe we'll end up in the second round and who knows what they can kind of dig out there.
Well, let's have a quick talk about these draft picks then. It won't take very long, obviously, but you've got the number 1 pick. You've then got the number 9 pick, which is your original pick. Then nothing in the second. You've got a 3rd round pick 75, and then you've got the Eagles pick 122 when they moved up for Jalen Carter. So you got that one. You lost your 4th round pick for Kenn and your 5th round pick for Ryan Bates. So we're asking you now, Noel, you are now Ryan Poles. Don't worry about whatever Ryan Poles is doing in the committee meeting, trying to kind of push these picks onto everyone else. But number 1 pick, are you going with Caleb?
Yes. Oh yeah, no. There's no other way that goes. I think, for a while I heard people saying Jaden Daniels would be the best, and maybe they should go there. I think Dan Orlovsky was saying that, but no, this has been nailed on for months. The second, as I say, they got that number 1 pick, I think they knew where they were going, unless something monumental happened, which was never going to happen, because Caleb Williams, he's kind of been groomed for this position his whole life. He's been brought up to believe he is this quarterback, and he has this unbelievable mental resolve that is who he is going to be. So I think he was always destined to push himself to that. And I think the Bears liked what they saw. And then, from all reports and everything I've heard, the visits went well. They went out for dinner. That went very well. Anytime they've met, they've been really, really impressed with him. There were a lot of stories going around about, potential interference from the father, or if Caleb is, a bit full of himself, or, a bit of a diva. And from what I've read, and I've been lucky enough to talk to some beat reporters who cover the Bears, and they just say, look, the Bears don't see it. The Bears are delighted with what they see. So, yeah, there's no question for me that's going to be the number 1 pick.
His teammates love him as well. You want to know what a guy's like? Ask his teammates, and they all love him to a man. There's not a bad word said about Caleb Williams. And show me a quarterback that's not a diva.
Yeah, absolutely. But we know when it comes to these players now, especially number 1 picks, these teams invest so much money in them that the investigation going into these, players, the interviews and everything else, right back to probably high school coaches, it's massively in depth, and I think Caleb Williams, I think he just wants to win. I think I think he's been groomed for this position, and I think he just has, I don't even know, I wouldn't even say it's an arrogance. I'd say it's just a supreme confidence. I think that's possibly what it is. And I'm really, really looking forward to them making the move. I think he really can. I think the Bears are pulling out all the stops now. You can see the moves they're making. As you mentioned earlier, Fields didn't get this kind of, setup around him. And that's just the way football works. But Caleb Williams is getting this setup around him. And the Bears look like they're determined to not make the mistakes previous Bears regimes have made with quarterbacks. And they're giving this kid every opportunity when he comes in the door, to win. And again, it's until you see them on the field, who knows? But as a fan, I'm definitely positive in what I can see them doing.
We're hunting unicorns, man. That's all we ever do in the NFL. And this boy's a unicorn. I think he's got the most opportunity to be close to Mahomes. He's got those traits. So I absolutely endorse what you're doing there with number 1. That's not so important.
That's a big statement at this moment in time.
Look, I don't want to put too much pressure on him. I'm just saying he has traits. He has traits, okay? I'm far more interested in what you're doing with number 9, though, Noel. Because for me, I know what I'd do with number 9. But what would you do with the number 9th pick?
For me, it comes down to either the 3 top wide receivers that we know of. Obviously, look, I don't think Marvin Harrison is getting that far. Neighbors probably won't. But I think there's a possibility Odunze does get there, given how quarterbacks might rise and what way tackles kind of go off the board. They could push the receiver down just a little bit. So if one of the receivers are there, I'm taking them. I'm running to the podium. If Joe Alt is there, like, I was happy with Braxton Jones. I think Braxton Jones did a good job, but I think if you can get Joe Alt, if he somehow falls to 9, which I don't think he does, but if he does, then he's my second option after the wide receivers. If they don't, I mean, I think the option of putting Darnell Wright on one side and Joe Alt and having those bookends for the next 10 years is something I just don't think you can pass up, even though I am happy with Braxton Jones. and he would be a swing tackle. He is still a good player that you would have on the roster there. And we know offensive lines don't stay injury free all season. He's going to play at some point, and I think he's a good player. But for me, I can't give up that option if Alt is there. After that, I mean, people are talking about the pass rushers, and we have Dallas Turner and Jared Verse. I don't know. I'm at that point, I'm thinking maybe none of those guys really, really well me. At that point, I'm thinking maybe I'm looking to see who wants to have a chat about a trade. You know, if you drop back 4 or 5 spots, you may still pick up a Jared Verse anyway.
Yeah.
You know, who knows? I mean, for me, I wouldn't mind if they could drop back far enough. Maybe Byron Murphy, the defensive tackle, who I do think could be that 3-tech over time, is an option then. Now, he's a little undersized in terms of his height, but I mean, he is. Now, I've seen him described as a ball of muscle. You know, and he is powerful. He's quick. You know, he's able to get after the quarterback. So someone like him, I wouldn't be against if they had to drop back a few spots, maybe pick up that second round pick or another third round pick, and maybe have him there. But yeah, that's kind of the way I'm thinking at the moment. Now, you guys know, give it 2 days and I could have a completely different scenario in my head when I do a bit more in depth. But for now, that's kind of the way I'm thinking. I mean, I do also like Jackson Power Johnson. He's center, but I don't think the Bears need that center. You mentioned Ryan Bates earlier on. They brought in Shelton as well from, I think, the Rams.
Yeah.
You know, I think they. From what I've heard, they do really like Bates, and he's probably going to be that center. So I don't know if they need someone like Johnson, but again, he's a player I like if they drop back a bit, but it's probably not an option.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think if the receiver's there, you take the receiver. If the tackle's there, you take the tackle, and if not, trade back. Get more.
I think you'll have some sort
of bang for your buck. Definitely.
Yeah, I think you'll have some sort of market. I mean, look, you could be looking at teams like, I don't know if the Raiders are looking to move up a few spots if there's a quarterback who suddenly starts to slide a bit. Maybe the Broncos. I mean, the Broncos can't go in with Jared Stidham. I don't know what you'd be doing there. So maybe
insanity,
they could, maybe a Penix or a Knicks. Maybe one of those teams kind of fancy a player like that. So maybe you could drop 4 or 5 spots and as I say, even still pick up Verse if that's who they want to partner alongside Montez Sweat. So I think the Bears, they have options anyway. They've a few draft picks, but I think they have options if the right player isn't sitting there for them at 9.
Yeah, I'm shopping that pick all day. I want more picks if I'm Ryan Poles. I'm not hungry for a receiver because I've just brought in Keenan Allen. And I've got DJ Moore there already. So I'm just adding a third name onto the list. Don't go into a draft hungry is the point of the exercise. You shouldn't be hungry for anything but a quarterback. So after that, I want to be putting as many picks in as I can for that number 9 spot. But that's just me. Like I said, if a great talent does fall down, then it's going to be tempting. But yeah, I'd still think
that's where the mad scramble starts, isn't it? Because you've got the Broncos, Raiders, the Vikings are still looking to do something. I expect. Yeah, there's a few hungry teams out there that are going to be looking and scrambling to get up into that top 10 if 1 or 2 players start falling. So it could be a bit of a bum fight come the night.
One more question.
And that's where I think, I was going to say, that's where I think Ryan Poles has done a great job in putting the Bears in a position where they don't need to reach with that 9th pick now.
Yeah.
They can wait for a good player to come to them, or they can shop it and move back a little bit if that's what they feel they need to do, if the player they want just isn't sitting there.
You're absolutely right. So last question for you. So what, after this draft finishes and you've got your quarterback for the foreseeable future, what then looks like success for the Chicago Bears next year? What would you be happy with?
I think they need to be fighting for the playoffs. I think that's kind of where they are. And I know that's going to be difficult. You have a rookie quarterback, so there's a lot of pressure being put on them. But again, I talk about the rebuild, and in year 1, they won 3 games. In year 2, they won 7. Actually, it could have been 10. There were 3 games. They were 90+% favorite to win going into the 4th quarter, which they dropped. So that's literally toss of a coin in the 4th quarter. They should have won, and they lost it. So potentially they could have won an extra couple of games. So I think this season they need to be winning those couple of games. They need to be looking at 9-10 wins. And I do think playoffs is an option because it is year 3. It might be year 1 for the quarterback, but it is year 3 for this regime. And they have made some big moves. So it'll be tough as well. I think the North is looking like it can be a tough division this year. Green Bay, who I thought would take a step back last year, No, no.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
They started terrible and they finished like a train, they're flying along. Then the Vikings, if they can get the right quarterback, they have other pieces in place already. And the Lions, how close were they to a Super Bowl? So it's going to be a tough division. But I still think, given the way this rebuild has gone, the Bears need to be pushing for that playoff spot. And I think that's what most people will probably demand.
You definitely want more CJ Stroud than you do Bryce. But
wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, absolutely.
But what pressure CJ Stroud has put out there now for
that's it. He's
quarterbacks coming
now,
up. Like everyone's going
to
expect. CJ did it last year.
No, he's not the first to do it, but he's probably one of the least likely to do it. Let's be honest. We certainly in our preseason last season, I think we looked at the Texans as long as they take a step forward and get to 6, 7, 8 wins, that's a good season. And look what they managed. So, yeah, I think, if you get the quarterback in place, I think you've got pieces around you. I can see you having every chance of fighting for a playoff spot.
Where can people hear more of you, Noel? How can we get hold of you?
If people go for the Irish NFL show, we're on X there, and I'm at my X is at the Irish Bears 1, so that's DA Irish Bears 1. But yeah, mainly now the Irish NFL show. We're going to start now tomorrow on Thursday. We're kicking off our countdown from 32 to 20, and we'll be kind of going through the draft picks over the next few weeks, or the teams, and kind of giving our opinion on that. So yeah. That's where we are. The draft is really, really kicking in now in terms of shows like yourselves.
Well, thank you so much, Noel, for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure, and look forward to having you collaborating in the future. You know where we are if you need us to a deluded Raider or Steelers fan to help out on anything. You know where we are.
Absolutely, guys. Really appreciate the invite. Really enjoyed tonight. Thanks.
Been awesome, Noel. Thank you.
So that was Noel from the Irish NFL podcast. Great to have him on for the first time. Hopefully that's the first of many. And we're going to move on now to the Commanders, picking number 2 in the draft. We have been very lucky to get hold of guys from the Burgundy and Gold podcast. You can get them at the 2 Knuckleheads on Twitter. I'm not going to call it anything else but Twitter. You can check them out on YouTube as well as Podbean. Really good guys. So yeah, looking forward to speaking to them now. Okay, so Ken, thank you so much for being on the show, man. It's great to have you on. How's everything going over there?
It's going well. It's going well. We just had the eclipse come through the United States here.
Yeah,
I don't know how much it was covered over there, but over here, you just got way too much of it. Even though we were experiencing it, but that was a cool event a couple of days ago. But yeah, always biting at the chip for football.
We have so much darkness over here, man. Anything extra is not news to us.
Yeah, we don't see the sun.
we saw it on TikTok, yeah. I think, but that's about
just
it.
Clouds and rain.
Yeah, very good, very good.
So we need to ask you, Ken. You're not based in DC, so how did you fall into the trap of the Commanders / Redskins family?
For those that don't know, to your point, I'm in the Dallas area now, behind enemy lines. But I was born and raised outside of DC. My dad was in DC. I was there. I joined the Air Force when I was a youngster, and as I say, Uncle Sam sent me to Texas. I got out and I found a Texas wife. I got a Texas job. I got Texas kids, and now I'm stuck in Texas. So with
Dallas, though,
I do feel like I'm stuck in Texas. I'm not. Yeah, it's not bad, but I'm not the happiest person being here in Texas. So
no, I can appreciate that. And who's your favorite ever Washington player?
We had a conversation a while back originally, I don't know, few weeks ago between Reggie and I, my podcast partner. The first person that I ever liked going back into the 70s was Larry Brown. Probably before your time, but he was an MVP in 73, and that's about the time as a kid that I just started looking at it and go, okay, he's supposed to score a touchdown every time he handles the ball, right? That's when you're 5 years old. You think ridiculous things like that. But probably John Riggins. John Riggins as a player and as a personality. He's still a personality. He's still part of Redskins media, Redskins / Commanders media. and he's to this day he's still a character. So he's probably my all-time favorite.
I remember watching Riggins. You liked him, Jim. He used to have a running style similar to Bettis.
Oh,
So
lovely.
yeah,
He was
very
a
hard,
power,
very
put down the
smash
shoulder.
mouth.
Yes.
My
I've
style of football.
I've
Yeah.
seen the documentary on Sonny Jurgensen. He looked like an absolute character as well. But yeah,
Yeah.
John Riggins.
Yep,
I've heard
yep.
of John Riggins. Don't worry, I've heard of John Riggins.
Yeah.
Now we've got a Commanders fan over in the UK, Commander Paul, who we asked him at the start of last season what would be a success for him, and he said, "I don't care if we don't win a game. We have lost Dan Snyder, and that in itself deserves a bus parade." How have you felt, Ken, with the difference between Snyder and Josh Harris? Is it like coming out of a dungeon, or?
Yeah, it's night and day difference. I mean, I
Mhm.
think since Snyder left and Josh Harris came around, you quickly see how a professional organization, for those that haven't experienced it as a Washington fan, you quickly see how a professional team is supposed to be run. The due diligence that they went to go get Adam Peters as a GM, then they went and went through the process and got Dan Quinn and as the head coach, and Cliff Kingsbury and Joe Witt as offensive and defensive coordinators. They went the path that you're supposed to go. They didn't just kind of wing it. That was kind of Dan Snyder just winging it, trying to throw money at things, almost like a fantasy football owner. It was kind of his approach to running a team. But yeah, glad that he's gone. Absolutely.
And throwing money wasn't something he did a
maybe.
lot, though. It was obviously, he didn't invest in the stadium and
At
invested
the
in
end, he
court
didn't.
cases. But
At the end, he didn't. But early on, when Snyder's first 4 or 5 years, it was whoever was the hot free agent. That's who he went and got the big name. A lot of times they were over the hill. He'd be like, "Oh, this guy's 34 years old, but he's going to the Hall of Fame. If we go get that one guy, that one receiver, that one defensive tackle, whoever it was, he went for that splash like he was playing fantasy football, and it backfired pretty much every single time."
yeah, I'm thinking Hainsworth has just popped into my head there
So
for some
what
reason.
is
I don't know
Absolutely.
why, but
the obvious
The
one?
list is long. He was probably one of the worst, but the list is long, unfortunately.
so last season, our first one obviously without Snyder, but it still wasn't a fun season. I'm guessing for the most part, you had, is it 4 wins, and there was a 1-10 down the stretch record as well. I mean, the last, what is it, 9 games or something was losses.
Yeah. And as for the people that own season tickets, I flew up to DC for the first game of the season against the Cardinals.
Mhm.
Turns out that was the only home win of the season, was the first one. So, you're playing either 8 or 9 games alternating each year. So
Mhm.
they had, I don't know how many it was last year. I think it was 8 last year, if I'm not mistaken. So they had the 1 win and then 7 losses at home, along with the losses on the road. So
Seven other home losses
Yeah,
there.
that's brutal. When
yeah,
that
that's
happens.
tough as fans, especially when you're investing your money,
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely not that we were expecting to necessarily be a playoff team, but you're supposed to see the light. You were hoping for that. Sam Howell was going to be the player that you anticipated, or that the coaches were hoping that he was going to be. And if he would have been, it would have been a major shift. The offensive line was horrible, especially the first half of the year. And it just things didn't work out. The defense was supposed to hold them for the last couple years, and the defense has been one of the worst in the NFL the last few years. But that was supposed to be their strength. So Sam Howell and the offensive unit could get things in motion, and neither one ever really got any traction, to be honest.
Commanders are one of those teams for me that the last few years I've so wanted them to do well. And you think on paper they've got a team there that can compete at least in the games, but something just doesn't seem to translate onto the field. And of course, Jack Del Rio got fired after I think it was week 12.
Right.
But Ron Rivera felt like a dead man walking for a long
Yes.
time in that organization. It felt like with Josh Harris coming in, I don't know whether he gave any assurances when he turned up or whether Rivera knew that, okay, look, I'll get maybe 1 season because they're not going to fire me straight away, but I'm not going to be here next year. So really, what's the point? You see that with some coaches. Frank Reich never looked happy. All 6 games he was in Carolina.
Yeah.
You know, you know if your time's coming up, and there seems the team feels it in wilts, and I don't know. You're obviously closer to it than we were, but every time I was like,
Yeah.
surely the Commanders can win this game, and they didn't. And you're like, how did they lose that one?
Yeah, they seem to, rise and fall depending on the team that they were playing. And I think, since there's so much parity in the NFL, when you're a better team, you need to beat the teams that you're better than, right? And then the teams that are tough along with you, you need to, get a 50-50 split. And if you can do that throughout the season, you'll be a playoff team. And then it's a matter of getting into the rhythm and getting into your groove. And maybe even healthy if you've had some people out as the playoffs come and you make your Super Bowl push, especially if you have a couple special players on your team. And right now, what I like to call difference makers, Washington doesn't have very many difference makers, right? There's everybody has this core group of players, but you're a lot of times in today's league, it's your wide receivers, your quarterback, maybe a defensive end that makes 3 or 4 difference making plays in a game. And Washington just doesn't have it right now. And, we'll see if this new regime can put something together.
Yeah. I mean, talking about players that have left, I mean, Sam Howell obviously was the big trade out going to Seattle to be a backup. He's clearing the decks, I guess, for the number 2 pick in the draft. You brought in Mariota, who
Right.
I think he played 8. He was featured in 8 games last year for Philadelphia,
Right.
but really he's only thrown like 3 passes in each of those games. He didn't do an awful lot. Obviously, second overall pick once upon a time for the Titans. Do you think that Mariota is going to be starting week 1 no matter who you're picking?
I don't think so. I would have liked to have seen that Washington keep Jacoby Brissett, because I think he's more of a short-term starter. So if whoever they would have brought in at number 2, there wouldn't have been that pressure for him to start if they didn't need to. I think with Mariota, it's almost like whoever they're going to select at number 2, which we all just assume it's going to be a quarterback, that person is probably going to start right off the bat, unless the progression is not there at all, or there's an injury or something like that. I think they're just going to throw them into the fire, and the way they're building the team is to get that person up and ready. So not the ideal way in my opinion, but
I agree. I think keeping Brissett would have been the absolutely perfect bridge quarterback for you. I think we've done a similar thing going out and getting Gardner Minshew. I think he will start day 1 probably, but I'm fully expecting us to try and get a quarterback anyway. But you're right. The NFL has become such a win now league that those years of sitting a Steve Young behind a Joe Montana for a couple of years, it just doesn't happen anymore. And these guys coming out of college have got to be on the ball straight away and up to speed by the end of training camp. Otherwise, they tend to sink without a trace, and the team is lost for the season.
And it puts pressure on the coaches also, right?
Yeah.
Not only you got to get them up to speed, but the same game plan they're running week 1 probably isn't the same game plan that they're going to be running in week 16 as they pick up and grow. So you really need to scale back and find your strengths and weaknesses real quick if you want to be successful. And it's not just strengths and weaknesses of the quarterback. It's all the talent there. I mean, granted, you got to do that anyway, but it's hyper focused when everybody doesn't know the NFL as much as from a quarterback perspective. So.
I mean, you mentioned the massive turnaround in the front office again this offseason. It's not just there on the roster as well, but 9 players out, 16 players in. What are your thoughts then on Adam Peters, obviously coming over as director of player personnel from the 49ers? Are you happy with the moves he's made in free agency?
Yeah, I think overall I have been real happy. They again, the approach that they have taken, and again, I got to go all the way up to Josh Harris, right? Josh Harris went and got Adam Peters, which absolutely happy with. And then he went and got Dan Quinn and the other staff. And, they've just consistently, I don't want to, use a baseball term and say, they've hit a home run every single time, but they're just getting it right. And granted, you got to turn that into results on the field, but up until this point, there's hardly anything to really argue or go against them as far as moves that they made in free agency. I know, they let Cameron Curl and Fuller go. They traded away Sam Howell because they knew that they were going in another direction. And so, and then even, I can't really give Adam Peters this, but go back to Josh Harris. Last year, he knew that he wasn't going to sign Montez Sweat or Chase Young, and went and got something at the end of the trade deadline rather than just let him go to free agency and maybe or maybe not get a compensatory third. Well, they got a third and they got a second for him, and that's going to help the new regime here, along with the salary cap that they went into, to really turn this around. And so, time will tell, but everything is there in place for the Washington Commanders to have a turnaround in a couple of years if they hit on the quarterback.
We did a pod a couple of weeks ago where we were looking at the top 6 teams, and when we were looking at your free agents, I felt that you'd raised the floor with the players you brought in. No massive superstars other than Wagner, but obviously he's a Hall of Famer, but he's at the tail end of his career. But you've raised the floor over all of that team by the solid players you brought in. There's no one going, oh, geez, you brought him in. These are all players, like a lot of these are going in and they're actually going to be starting, or they're first or second in the depth chart. Looking at the
and a lot of a lot of them, if you look at the contracts, are only 1 and 2 year contracts. So even from a having fluid money to make these decisions, they're going to have it. Now, yes, you end up having to re-sign them, but if these players don't work out, you're not on the hook with either dead cap space money or just a player that isn't worth the money that you're paying. So
you have the flexibility there, absolutely. So, on to this draft then, Ken. You have 9 picks in this draft. You're picking second, obviously, overall. 36th and 40th pick in the second round. 3 third-round picks, and then nothing in the fourth. Couple of 5th and a 7th. You are Adam Peters now, Ken. What are you doing, first of all, with number 2, if we assume that Caleb Williams is off the board at 1?
Yes.
I mean, unless you're PFF. Caleb Williams isn't there, unfortunately. As much as I'd love him to be in a kind of burgundy and gold again. Was it maroon and gold over there? I don't know if it's kind of the same.
Very similar colors. And if you didn't know it, Caleb Williams is actually from the Washington D.C. area. He's from the DMV area. So, and I think he kind of alluded, that, man, he wished things would work out. But obviously,
you're not trading up then. You're not going to trade up to 1. Not going to do a Chicago Bears.
I think the price is too much, and I don't think Chicago's really truly interested in it. But going into at the end of the season, I was on the Drake May bandwagon. I honestly said I'm not a big Jalen Daniels fan. But then I started looking at film, and the film that I started looking at, I basically disregarded big plays. His 50-yard runs and his 50-yard bombs, I ignored that. Right, that's just highlight stuff. I want to see how are you throwing a crossing pattern? How are you throwing a slant? How are you throwing a deep out? Are you hitting these in stride? How are you looking? And that's when I started truly liking the guy. He had a lot of talent around him, but he also made that talent better. It was a two-way street. He's got some great wide receivers with him, but the argument could say for the wide receivers, well, you had a great quarterback throwing to you. With all that being said, I'm on the Jalen Daniels bandwagon right now. If I was picking, that's who I would take. I think he has the most upside. Drake May have the lowest bottom, but I think Jalen Daniels, that's who I'm going to be pulling for to get drafted on with the number 2 pick.
I think you're right. The mechanics from Daniels are just so consistent. Like you said, when you start looking at all of his plays, not just the highlight reels, you see how he's consistent with his motion, his footwork. Whereas Drake May reminds me so much of Josh Allen at Wyoming. Not Josh Allen now, but Josh Allen at Wyoming, where he's just moonballing it down the field. And,
Right.
you know, we're starting to hear the more people that watch him, they start to say, okay, yeah, I'm seeing the same things here. It's not just he can scramble and throw it 60 yards, but he's not hitting wide open players all the time. I think that I want Commanders fans to have a little bit of fun. And I don't want you to be pulling your hair out, Ken, for the next 5 years, thinking, oh, why can't we just have Josh Allen Mark II? But I don't think he is that. It's very rare that you get someone to improve the way that that Josh did. And he still
Right.
hero balls it far too often. You know, he still kind of costs his team games that more competent or more cautious quarterbacks, I should say, probably would have got over the hump.
Yeah.
So I would agree with you. I think Punk famously doesn't watch anything about college football. We do a mock draft where he kind of judges who we offer him a player and he says, I'll take him, kind of thing.
I'm not allowed to look at any players in the draft until we've done our mock draft.
This is useless for him. But my big question then is, you've got 36 and 40. Are you moving back into the first? Do you think, is there a player that you're looking at going, we really need someone at this position?
A glaring hole that we have, if you look at our roster and how it's the depth chart and talent right now, our other glaring hole is we need a number 2 wide receiver and we need a left offensive tackle.
Mm-hmm.
I know we didn't go do anything major in the free agency with offensive tackle. And a lot of people are expecting in the second round, one of those 2 picks, or package something to move up, that an offensive tackle will be picked there. There's some talent there. My only concern is I'm going to have a rookie left tackle with a rookie quarterback. You know, it's I'm not saying it's a bad combination. It's a unnerving combination for me. I would like for them to have gone and gotten a solid, don't have to be a superstar, but a solid veteran at offensive tackle, since you knew that you were going to go with a rookie quarterback. But that's kind of how I see it happen. I don't know that we're going to move up. But to your point, because you've got so many pieces there, you can combine a couple of them and move up to get that player if you want it. But I think I lost track. I think when I went and looked the other day, I saw that there were in the top 100, because we've got 6 of the top 100 picks.
Yeah.
In the top 100, there are, I've got it here from my notes from the other day. There are 14 offensive tackles in the top 100. So
you should be okay.
The odds are you're going to like one of them.
You don't have to go chase the top 3 or 4.
Yeah,
and there's probably 3 or 4 that you don't want to start right away, but there's going to be some in the middle there that are going to work for you if that's the way you want to go.
Yeah. I would hope with 36 and 40 are still really nice places to be picking. So as much as it's tempting to move back into the first, I think that Washington maybe are better off taking 2 very good pieces with those picks. But I mean, that's just me. But.
The only good thing about moving up to the very top or the bottom, however you want to look at it, say 25 to 32 in the first round, is you get that 5th year option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So true. if you're only moving up 7 or 8 spots, you might not have to give up a whole lot to move up 7 or 8 spots, but you get that 5th year option, which can't, again, if it's a quarterback, that's bigger than in some positions, to be able to get that extra year before they hit that big contract and their first free agent contract. So
absolutely. So after this draft is all over, Ken, and everything's all settled, what is success going to look like for you next season for the Commanders?
First and foremost, we found a quarterback. Any team that has a quarterback, you can rebuild. You can make trades, free agents. You can have a bad year and turn around the very next year. If you don't have a franchise quarterback, you're in trouble. That's just the league in the NFL. I know Punk Raider, you're going through that, and actually even Jim,
Again,
we've gone through that for about 25 years.
Same here. And the Steelers, for the first time in a long time, they're feeling that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, true.
The moves that you made may end up resolving that, but you're in that position of, man, I got this huge hole that we'll do anything. We'll go get 2 quarterbacks so we can
Yeah.
fill up one hole, you know?
Yeah. We don't have the
Yeah.
luxury of a top pick, so we have to make do where we can. But
Right.
okay, yeah, well, you're absolutely right. I mean, hopefully you guys can make some damage in the NFC East. There are some weak teams in there that I hope you exploit. Honestly, I really do like the Commanders, and so I really hope that you exploit some of those other weaker teams in there and get back into the playoffs, man. It's been too long. Been too long.
Right. I agree. I agree.
Ken, where can people find you and Reggie? What can we do to hear you guys more?
Yeah, we are on all the podcast platforms that are, you know, whether it's Apple, Android, however you go there, just look for the Burgundy and Gold Knuckleheads. Clearly I'm a knucklehead. And then even on YouTube, you can find us. Just do a search on Burgundy and Gold Knuckleheads. One of the main ways that we interact with people, we're on most of the social platforms, but we're bigger on Twitter. That's where we interact with people. So follow us, comment with us, argue with us, you know, tell us we're knuckleheads. We're used to it. But yeah, that's the easiest way to find us and interact with us.
It's been such a pleasure, Ken. Thank you so much for coming on, man. Give our best to
Yeah,
Reggie as
thank you,
well.
man.
And
Thanks,
best
guys.
of luck for the draft. And hopefully get to speak again very soon as well to see how it's all falling out.
Perfect. Thanks,
Take
guys.
care, man.
Love it.
Bye.
Thanks, Ken.
So there was Ken. And we need to move on now to the last, well, maybe the least as well. I don't know, Punk. What do you reckon? This team needs a lot of work doing to it.
You know, it's the team picking at 3. We know what their history is. Not sure if we should be welcoming people or whether...
We will welcome them anyway. It's time to get in touch with the guys from the Patriots Touchback. So we're going to speak to Nick. So Nick, thanks very much for coming on the show, man. How's it going?
All good. Just getting through it. Off season, you know, finishing drafts coming up. So all good.
We better ask you, of course, first, why the Patriots? Out of all 32 teams in all the league, Nick, why did you pick the New England Patriots?
That would be stubbornness.
Okay.
Not glory hunting, no?
No. We're going back to pre-Brady. We're going back to 1999, and back then I was really into ice hockey. I was playing ice hockey. I was into the NHL big time. Big fan of the Colorado Avalanche and the New Jersey Devils. Don't know why they were the two sides. I think because I like Martin Brodeur and I like Patrick Roy, and they were the two keepers anyway. So it's 1999 and my uncle lives in New Jersey, and I went to stay with him for a week, and I was desperate to see Gretzky at the Madison Square Garden, and I was pleading, you know, and I was 16, so, you know, going from New Jersey on my own at 16 years old in the evening, no, that wasn't going to happen. So I was pleading to go and watch the Wayne Gretzky, and I was like, nope, me next door neighbor's got us tickets to go and watch the football, and I'm like, I don't really follow American football, but I was like American football as in American soccer. So I was like, I don't really know. I don't get there, and it's like, what's this? Oh, it's kind of like rugby. Oh, I don't like rugby to start with, but okay, we'll go with it. And then, like, again, don't want to be here. I want to be at the Garden. Oh, and anyway, so I got took to see the Jets at home to the Patriots.
Okay.
And it was 1999, and I was there, didn't want to be there. The guy that had got the tickets was a Jets fan. My uncle was like, yeah, we're going to go and see. And I was like, I'm going to support the other team because I don't want to be here. And they've got England in their name. And you know what? Let's go. And sure enough, so I supported New England that night quietly, going, yeah, that'll do. You know, and then 3 days later, I got to see Gretzky at the Garden anyway. But yeah,
awesome.
So it was all out of stubbornness that that's where my NFL journey started, and it's just grown from there. But yeah, so I was pre-Brady.
We know there are a few. We know a Patriots fan who started supporting after losing to the Bears in the Super Bowl. That was the first game he ever saw.
Yeah.
The 85 he saw the 85 Super Bowl and decided to support the Patriots. So they're out there. They're out there.
Yeah, so I think this would have probably been around the October time. So I think Brady would have been drafted the April prior. I think that would work, right? So yeah, he would have been drafted in the April, but still an unknown and whatever else. And then I saw them in the October. So
Pick
It would have
199.
been
He won't do
Drew
anything.
Bledsoe
That's
at
fine.
quarterback, and
Yeah.
So, who is your favourite Patriot? I don't know if we should allow him to pick Brady.
I don't
though.
know if this is. I think anyone other than Brady. They would probably be wrong.
Brady is not my favorite Patriot, but he is a close
Excellent.
second.
All right, who's the first?
I don't think you can go wrong with Gronk, really.
Yeah.
I love that man. You know, from the stupidity off the field and just the brashness of everything to his unbelievable.
Anyone that will jump in the ring at WrestleMania is fine by me. You know.
Yeah, Gronk, Brady, Edelman, and the other one who doesn't get a lot of love, and I don't mind on the D side of the ball, would be Big Vince Wilfork.
Oh,
love Big Vince.
Yeah.
You know, I appreciate that man. You know, as a big man myself, you know, when he stepped on ESPN's body issue, you know, and then that running thing, I was like, fair play, mate. You're better than me. So yeah,
any man that large that can pull off the dungarees deserves all the credit in the world.
Dungarees and
you
boots,
say pull off the dungarees, but you've got to be careful how you say that.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, that man was a space invader. I mean, it's hard to like Patriots players, but I did like Vince Wilfork. I've got to be honest. He was pretty special. So last year, Nick, 4-win season. That's the lowest since 1992 when Dick McPherson was your head coach, and a year before Bill Parcells and Drew Bledsoe even turned up. So that's not got to feel too good. How was it on your side of the trench? And why? And why was it only 4 wins? You know, you still had the best coach ever there.
It was just dire to watch. Every game you were going in, it's like, oh. And we went through that period in the middle of the season. There was 4 games where we lost by less than 1 score.
Mm-hmm.
And I was out in Germany, as was our podcast. We were all out there in Germany, and we watched that dire game, and it was like, oh God. And it was just, the defense last year absolutely balled out. They did everything that was asked of them. But we had an O-line that couldn't protect the quarterback. The quarterback got jittery because he wasn't getting protected. He couldn't go through his reads because Mac was a process guy. He liked to go, right, this is my thing. I need to do this. Then I need to do this. Right, look for my first read. Look for my second. If he hasn't got time to do that, he's useless. And that was the problem. He had an O-line in front of me that was ravaged by injury. And then, you know, he got hit a few times and that got him a bit jittery. And then he just broke down. And I feel sorry for the guy, but then I also don't feel sorry for him in the case that you've got to be able to adapt. And I think it's his ability not to adapt that has cost him a space on the roster. I think everyone could have said, look, you know, yeah, the line was not great. But if he was trying to adapt around that, you could probably worked with it. But the fact that he just couldn't adapt and he had that rigid momentum of doing this, it just wasn't going to work. But Bill, I can't sit here and slag Bill off because he is the greatest coach that has ever been in the game. And the game has changed and evolved, and Bill just hasn't changed with the game. And that's part and parcel of his age and the way he was brought up. That doesn't make him a bad person, and that certainly doesn't make him a bad coach. It just means maybe he popped on the scene a couple of years too late, and that would have meant he'd have been a couple of years ahead. Because I don't think he'll ever break Don Shula's record now, even though he was so close. And I'd have loved to see him do it, but I don't think he's going to get another chance. And he's just gone beyond the point of where he's still relevand. And
I agree. I think the chance at Shula's record's gone now. I'm amazed no one took a gamble on him in this off season. But I think you're exactly right. I think the problem is the game has moved on. I think he's very much stuck in his kind of a bit like me, stuck in my I prefer the old school bar humbug type ways. If I could get away with wearing a sleeveless hoodie, I would. But yeah, no, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. I think it's just the time that the players have moved on. It's all now, so offensively based the game that it's almost unfair to have defensive coaches like Belichick anymore, because they just can't compete, can't create the dynamism that's needed on that offensive side of the ball to score 30 points a game.
Yeah,
he didn't used to touch the offensive side, did he? But two seasons ago, he hired Matt Patricia to be the offensive coordinator, Nick. So that, and then he brings in Bill O'Brien back to be the defensive coordinator, and Mac regresses even further. He had more interceptions than touchdowns this last season, which obviously precludes him now leaving for a 6th round pick to the Jags to be a backup to a guy that he was drafted in the same round as. At the same time, as much as I don't think that Mac Jones is the guy, it was never a great situation for him. He's not with a head coach that understands quarterbacks or has to deal with quarterbacks. He had Tom Brady, who dealt with himself. Didn't want any help from Bill Belichick for the most part, by the looks of it. There was no way of Bill nurturing a quarterback who clearly needs some help, and he didn't put anyone around him to help him out. And the guy he did put in didn't seem to turn the corner on it. And there was also is he going to be playing this week? Is he going to be benched this week? Is he going to be pulled in the third quarter? That destroys a player's confidence as well, by the looks of it. So I mean, we had a similar situation with Kenny Pickett. I didn't want him in the first place. Very similar traits. If you didn't have enough time in the pocket, he got skittish. He'd make mistakes. He started pouting, and we moved him on as well. We got a bit more for him, thankfully. But yeah, what were your thoughts on Mac Jones? Do you think he could have worked if it had been a more QB friendly situation, or is he just wasn't the guy? He was overdrafted. You need to move on.
I think if you look at it in context, that when Matt came in, he was up against a former All-Pro, a Cam Newton that was, MVP and everything else. But Cam Newton was shot. His body had given up on him, and he didn't have the ability to play the game that he wanted to. Now, I think had you drafted or had the Patriots brought in, a Cam Newton in his prime, that would have been very different. So Mac Jones was only up against an ailing Cam Newton. It was very obvious that Mac was the better option. But just because he's the better option over Cam Newton doesn't mean he's the right option for the team at the time. And like you said, you go back to Brady. Brady did manage himself. Brady, all the players, they've said it on the Dynasty, and a lot of the players said in public that they worked for Bill, but they played for Brady.
Mm-hmm.
And Brady was able to run up and down on the sideline and shout at players and get them to give him that extra mile that he was wanting from them, that extra bit. And Bill could do that as well, because it was a sign of the time. Bill could rule with an iron fist, and Bill would tear Tom a new one to make everyone aware that nobody is safe, and that if the best player in the league can get shouted at for making an error, then everyone's will get shouted at. But like you said, times change, the game changes. Players don't like getting shouted at now. Players don't like getting singled out and said, you missed a block there. What were you doing? You're crap. Right. Oh, you can't tell me I'm crap. I've got all this money from NIL. Don't you? The game's changed. So, like I said, I think had Bill arrived a few years earlier, he'd have got more out of it, and he'd have probably had more success, in the middle period. But I think Mac was a victim of circumstance. The team was on the way down. Mac needed help. He didn't get it. And that was just unfortunate. And Bill being Bill, he only trusted the certain people. He liked, that saying of keeping your friends close and your enemies closer. Bill didn't even do that. He kept his friends close and his enemies as far away as he could. And that meant that the pool of people that he trusted just got smaller and smaller. And that's how you end up with a DC on as your OC, because you don't trust. Yeah. You don't trust. There's nobody else in your circle that you're willing to trust.
And your son is a linebacker coach.
Yeah.
So I mean,
can't trust your son. Who can you
no,
trust?
well, shouldn't trust him. So I mean, it brings us on to the next part. Then obviously that now Bill is gone, and Gerard Mayo is the new head coach, out with the kind of old and in with the kind of new. What are your thoughts on Gerard Mayo? Was he the guy that you really wanted to bring in as a kind of consistency candidate, or was there someone out there that I wanted a Harbaugh or I wanted a Pete Carroll back again, or I don't know? What was your thoughts on that one?
I don't know whether I mean, I never considered Harbaugh, but I'm not. If Jim Harbaugh had ended up at the Patriots, I wouldn't be sat here now kicking and screaming it's the wrong decision. But I never actually considered him because he was always going to go to the Vikings. He nearly went to the Vikings last year, or the Chargers, which he went to this year. I don't think it was ever a case of Robert Kraft, obviously, with the contract that Gerard Mayo had. He was always going to replace Bill. It was predetermined years ago. So I don't think. I think the Patriots fans had already recognised that was going to be the way it was, and everyone had accepted that. So there wasn't really are we going to consider who else is available? Because we knew what was happening. We knew what was coming. I'm excited for it. It's a new era. For a lot of Patriots fans, it's all it's an era. They don't remember anything else. They've only ever had Bill and most of the time Tom. And it's, I think that's why the Patriots have been on top for so long. The fact that they're now not top is such a story to everybody. Whereas if you look at it in through the context, not every team can stay at the top for the entirety of forever. That's just not going to happen. At some point, this great Chiefs team are going to slip backwards and slip down. Hopefully before Mahomes beats Brady's record, but I'm not holding out much hope for that.
It's how the league's designed, isn't it?
Yeah, it's tight. It's ebb and flow, and the Patriots were on top for so long. You take your medicine.
You paused the wheel for an awful long time.
Yeah.
But this is the first off season, obviously, in a long time where it's got to be really exciting because you don't know what you're going to do in the draft. The free agency's been a little bit weird as well. I mean, you brought back Jacoby Brissett as maybe a week. Do you think he's going to be the week one starter no matter who you're drafting at number 3? Seems like a pretty safe bet, right?
He'll be the week one starter, yeah.
Yeah. How many weeks would you give him until you think the guy you're taking at 3 is going to be replacing him, though? Do you want to see him sit a full year? Would you be happy with that, or?
This is the question.
Yeah.
There are 6 of us on our podcast. There are 6 Patriots fans. 4 of us want to draft the QB at 3. Yep. 2 of us don't. 2 of us want to trade down. So I'm quite happy to admit I'm one of the 2 that wants to trade down. I do not want a QB at 3. We have got far too many holes. We've got far too many needs. We need quality across the board, and that means you need high-value picks, and that means you're going to have to give up number. But I can't sit here and say, as a pod, we want to draft this, because it's not true. Everyone on the pod has a different opinion. And even if
you've already told us you're stubborn, though, Nick, so we understand now.
Oh, no. Even if you said, right, you are drafting a QB, 5 of the guys are willing to draft Drake May, and there's one guy who won't draft Drake May because he don't want him.
I'd second that one, man. Yeah.
So, there's only 4 of us on our podcast, and we argue all the time. So
that's part of the course.
I mean, if we draft a QB at 3, he will not be ready week 1. If it's May, he needs to sit the whole year. If it's McCarthy, which I doubt, I think Brisket might get half a season. And if it's Daniels, I think he gets a game, maybe a couple.
Probably that sounds about right. Yeah.
But like I said, I can't sit here and say we should draft this QB or that QB because I don't want to be there. I want to be further back. I want to be drafting a tackle and drafting a wide receiver and drafting another tackle. And so
you're begging the Vikings to pick up the phone and start throwing picks at you.
Yeah.
Come on, get desperate, Vikings. Come on. What have you got? last year you had 12 draft picks, I think it was, and obviously Christian Gonzalez you hit on. It was kind of surprising he fell that far to you in the first place, but slam dunk pick. Shame he plays 4 games, but in that he already had an interception, a forced fumble. What else was there? There was some 3 tackles for loss or something in there. He looks great. After that, I think the only person in the depth chart that's moved from lower down to starting is maybe Sidney Sell on the line.
Yeah, I think City was a benefactor of the fact that we had injuries across that O-line at the start of the season.
Yeah.
And it just got worse to the point that by the end of the season, So was playing right guard, I think.
Mhm.
And he was having a good, most of his games were consistent, but he was having those moments where he was getting overrun. And I think that just comes with experience. Obviously, we picked up Keon White,
Yep.
who I was really pleased that he was still there in that second round, and he showed some good promise throughout the year. Again, defensive side of the ball, the defense did lock out and played really well. So, we had the whole page, across the front line. We lost corner after corner. We lost Judon for the year as well. So, to lose so many key pieces and still perform well as a defensive side of the ball, I've got nothing but confidence in them going forward. So, but I think draft picks take time, and you would like, nobody's going to hit on every draft pick. That's just not going to happen. And some draft picks don't even make it out of camp. So I think to say if you drafted 12 and you maybe hit on 3 or 4, you're talking about a quarter to a third of your picks. That's maybe in sort of average of what you're probably looking at anyway. So hopefully the guys we drafted last year are better this year, and the guys we draft this year show promise enough that they get a chance as well. And that's all you can ask.
Plus, Bill was a renegade when it comes to drafting. I mean, Cole Strange. There was nothing he wouldn't do in terms of a draft. It was, which is why it's going to be interesting to see what we do this year, because you got 7 picks, 3rd overall, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. It's fairly vanilla in terms of the amount of picks you've got. If we're saying that you're not, I mean, everyone's just assuming you're taking a quarterback at 3. I think you're right. You're in a position where you actually don't need a quarterback because you have now got a safe quarterback there, a guy that's been in the league a long time. He's played multiple games. He's not going to get flustered. He's not a Tyrod Taylor who's just going to throw interceptions left and right. He's very much like a Gardner Minshew. He is a good game manager quarterback. He affords you some time to do other things. If you don't take a quarterback, do you think not at all in the draft? Or do you think that I want to take someone in the 2nd round or something? I want to take a chance later on.
I think, again, it actually depends on what's happening on the night.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think there is a possibility. I mean, I keep hearing rumors that if May's on the board, then the Giants might take him ahead of taking Neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
Which would free up Neighbors to go. Sorry, Neighbors would go to the Chargers, and that means rather than a Dunze, they would take May, and that would free up a Dunze to go to Chicago at 9, for example. Now, if the Giants are going to do that, then I don't know. Can you trade down from 3 to 6 with the Giants and then trade back with Minnesota? I don't know. That's possibly. I don't. Things will ebb again. It goes back. Things will happen on the night, and things will change. I think if the Patriots trade back, then for argument's sake, they're with Minnesota and they've got 11 and 23. For argument's sake, what's the point in trading back from 3 to 11 to get a QB when you could have got the same guy at 3? You're not really gaining anything. You're talking about at 11, maybe. If you're going to go wide receiver, by that time, your only pick is probably Brian Thomas Jr., which At 11, he would still be there in theory, unless
Yeah.
the Jets take him. But I think they'll go Bowers. Otherwise, you've got to go for a tackle. Now, I love JC Latham. The fact that he can play left and right, the fact that he's big, he's quick, he's mobile, you know. But I also like Tilly's Fuaga, and he just looks like he can break anything that he touches. And, bull in a China shot.
Yeah.
So, anything like that, maybe around the 11 mark. And then when you get to 23, probably maybe a wide receiver like a Donnie Mitchell will still be on the board, or Xavier Leggett or Xavier Worthy. But that means if you do that, then you're talking about a QB in round 2, at the beginning of round 2. So I don't know, maybe Penix is still there. He might not be. If he's not there and Bo Nix has gone to Denver, for argument's sake, there's nobody there to draft into. You might as well wait till 3. But then when you get to round 3, the QBs aren't really great anyway. So you're then like, well, what's the point? There are other positions you need. And
Exactly.
This is the thing. It's very hard to sit here 2 weeks out from the draft and say, they should do this, they should do this, they should do this, because what they should do changes based on what happens in the vicinity of the moment. And so it's just so hard. And mock drafts and, I've got my 5th mock draft coming out. Yeah, great. And that's 5 times that you're going to be wrong because you just can't see what's coming.
They do it every year, though, don't they? Because, I mean, look at last year. No one had the Texans picking 2 and 3, did they? That would never happen. Not one mock draft had that happening. So we're going to be doing 1 again this year. We only do 1 a year, and we do it as a bit of fun. Punk notoriously never watches any college game. So it's on me and the Denver guy to kind of pitch a player to him, basically. He says what he wants. We say, how about this guy? Dave says, how about this guy? And then Punk decides out of the 2 which one he's picking. So it's we don't try and take it too seriously. Only first round, everything. But yeah, to try and assume what's going to happen in the entire first round is just insanity. It never works out the way I think it's going to.
We're pretty good though. We hit about 25% of the time.
Well,
so
25% of the time we hit every time. So let's talk about. So you've got a new GM, a kind of de facto GM. They're not officially calling me a GM, but Elliot Wolf, Nepo baby. You love those in New England. He's going to be drafting for the first time. Obviously, his daddy, Ron Wolf, was the GM at the Packers a long time ago. Do you think he's got your kind of mentality, Nick, of we've got too many holes? I don't really, I'm not sold on Drake May, or, there's too many warning flags here. We're a new organization, basically. We're starting again from scratch. I don't want to be putting too many guys up at the top there. Let's get more picks. Let's try and change the team. Is that what you think he's going to do, or do you think, I don't know, what's your reading on the guy?
I just don't know. You look at his dad's style and the fact that he was around his dad for so long, and the way that he's going about things, and the way that he's talking and his attitude towards the game. It sounds like he's a chip off the old block. Now, that doesn't really help me in saying, well, he's definitely going to do this, because I couldn't tell you. Here's £100. Bet yes or bet no. Right? Okay. Well, if it's your £100, I'll bet this. But I'm not putting my own £100 on, because you just don't know. I think common sense says that you have to do what's best for the team, and what's best for the team is what's best right there, right then, at the moment. And that's why I think, we will have to wait until draft night to know what you might get the Patriots drafting on draft day, at the beginning of the day sort of thing. For us, it'd be around, sort of midday, 2:00 in the afternoon, when the leaks start coming out that this is what's going to happen. This is what's good, So, but from the sounds of it, it's going to take quite a lot to move the Patriots off 3. But is that just that's what they're saying? Because
you've got to say that, right? You've got to say that.
It's all smoke and mirrors at this point.
Yeah.
We'll be trading him for a second round pick. Don't worry. Yeah. Come in. Yeah. No, you've got to give us everything for it, right? That's how you start a negotiation. I'm excited to see what happens here, because, like I said, it's brand new. Basically, this is a new Patriots team. it finally
Yeah,
is there's been a big broom come in the room, and it's moved out everything that was there before, obviously apart from Kraft. But everyone in there is new. So when that's all said and done, Nick, what is your definition of a successful season, 2024/2025 for the
More than
Patriots?
4 wins.
More than it's a low bar.
No, I think
Finish ahead of the Jets.
well, that's all. It was hard to finish below the Jets last year, but we managed to do it. I noticed that the win total for the Patriots this season has been set at 5.5 before the draft. So 6 wins, I would expect the Patriots to get that. Obviously, if you're going to rebuild your team, it takes more than one draft. So if you can stay around the bottom of the, I think somewhere between 6, 7, 8. I think that's probably where the Patriots will be. And it's just you got to take your lumps. You've had the success. You've rode the wave. You're now in the rubbish behind it. You just got to take it.
Yeah, and yeah, the amount of bow wave that your team has created, you should be deserving of a lot more of this than.
I think if I can relate it to English football, Liverpool had that massive stint in the 60s and the 70s and and the 80s when they were great and they were brilliant, and then they dropped off the face of the earth and they just never did anything, and they had that real sort of down period, and now they've come back and they're fighting and then they're in and around. And then United have had the same thing. Fergie moves out and they've just gone downwards, and I don't know when they're coming back. And from my point of view, being the blue side of Manchester, I'm riding this. I've come from a Patriots crest. I've jumped onto. I'm riding another one. So, but I also know, having been down in the doldrums and being a City fan since we were really, really bad, I know what it feels like. And so all these Patriots fans that just can't deal with it and hate the fact that it's like, for me, it's just like, we're turning a really long corner. It takes a while, boys. You got to take it.
Yeah, you got to feel sorry for me then, being a Raider fan and an Everton fan. It's
misery loves company.
It's exactly that. I must have done something really bad in a previous life, I think.
we won't
speculate. I'm part of a social experiment. I'm just not sure which.
Nick, where can everyone hear more of you, mate?
People can hear more of me at Patriots Touchback. We've got a great crew, and we try to do one pod a week, and we'll talk about what's going on, the game that's in season. It'll be the game that's just happened. We'll have a game preview. We'll do some picks. Last night we did a first round draft, and yeah, so we're the only Patriots pod on this side of the pond. So we'd love for UK and European Patriots fans to follow us and listen to us, and if they don't agree with us, they can tell us. We've got a Twitter account, we've got a Facebook account, we've got a YouTube, and just by all means get on and get listening and enjoy. We're all part of the same family.
Well, we'll be listening and wishing you best luck for the draft. Obviously, stuff's going to happen. And
not too much luck now. They've had that.
Well, they had a lot of luck, so not too much, but have a little bit of luck. And hope to speak again, obviously, when it's all dust settled and everything. And yeah, wish you all the best, though, Nick. But thank you very much for coming on.
No worries. Cheers. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
No worries, Nick. So there we go, Punk. Wow, we spoke to more people today than we've spoken to in a long time.
Quick trip round the world.
Yeah, we went across the pond. Took a detour on the way there into the Emerald Isle. I had a lot of fun, man. That was.
It's been great. It's been great. It's been, and do you know what's really interesting is that all of us that do podcasts, we all have the same mentality. We're all just, lads that sit in the pub and chat football and thought, well, why not record it and stick it on the internet?
Yeah, exactly.
It's brilliant. It's been a brilliant time.
And now, of course, we're going to go into our own little mock draft this weekend and put that up for next week. It's always a lot of fun because, like I said, you have to pick what me and Dave put forward to you.
Yeah.
We should go off piste. I think there's been so many mock drafts that are just doing the same thing every time. Maybe we should be trading out and picking linemen to go to wherever, I don't know, punters. Take the gloves off.
I might pick a punter for Denver.
We'll do Chris Sims
with pick
rankings.
13. There we go. That sounds reasonable, doesn't it? I think we should do that. Investigate some punters.
Yep. So anyway, guys, check us out with the Final Down NFL podcast. Check us out on Twitter at Final Down NFL. Patreon.com/Final Down. There's a lot of free stuff on there. There's some early access stuff as well if you're willing to part with just a couple of pounds. That's all it takes, just a couple of pounds. But or obviously the FinalDown.com is our main website where everything that goes up there is free to see, including blogs and videos and of course the podcast. So that's that. And until next week, I've been Jim, that's been Point Raider, and thank you very much for listening.